Imagine standing in front of the sharks and being offered $4 million for your company and saying no. That's exactly what Joe Moore did. In one of the boldest moments in Shark Tank history, Joe Moore is not just a name in Shark Tank lore, he is one of its legends. His story is remarkable not only because of what he pitched, but because of the courage he showed in refusing a jaw-dropping $4 million offer. But before that dramatic moment, Moore's life and motivations laid the foundation for that high-stakes decision. Joseph K. Moore, often called Joe Moore, is best known as the founder and CEO of First Defense Nasal Screens, a company that produces nasal filters, small, discrete patches one can affix over the nostrils to reduce inhalation of pollutants, allergens, dust, and pathogens. His company's mission is deceptively simple. Don't get sick, just peel and stick. Moore's invention offered a non-invasive, self-adhering solution to respiratory hazards, something particularly relevant for allergy sufferers, travel, polluted cities, and areas with poor air quality. Moore's backstory adds layers to his character. He is a cancer survivor, which gave him both a personal connection to health and resilience through adversity. That perspective shaped his mindset and business. He knew he wasn't just selling a product, he was selling peace of mind, protection, and a quieter life for people who struggle with breathing, allergies, or environmental toxins. When he walked into the Shark Tank, Moore was already armed with strong metrics. He revealed he had sold approximately 1.7 million units at wholesale price of around 60 cents per unit, showing significant traction before ever appearing on television. He also had a substantial contract on the table, an $8 million overseas purchase agreement from a client in the United Arab Emirates, evidence that there was real global demand for his product. Moore's personality in the tank was calm, confident, and deliberate. He didn't rush, he answered tough questions, and he defended his valuation when the sharks pushed back. He showed the kind of self-belief that's rare in high-pressure entrepreneurial settings. The preparation, the data, and his conviction all set the stage for the greatest what-if moment the show would ever produce. So, Joe Moore was far from an inexperienced inventor. He was someone with a personal stake, scientific insight, business momentum, and the willingness to fight for what he believed his idea was truly worth. And that combination is what led us to that unforgettable showdown in the tank. First Defense Nasal Screens is the company Joe Moore pitched, and it may sound unassuming, but its concept was potent. The product is essentially a tiny, transparent nasal patch that filters air entering through the nostrils. It's not inserted deeply like nasal sprays. Instead, it adheres to the nostril opening, invisible to most observers, and traps allergens, fine particles, pollutants, and pathogens before they reach the lungs or irritate the respiratory system. Why was this idea compelling? Several reasons. Addressing a real pain point. Allergies, pollution, respiratory sensitivity. These issues affect millions globally. A discrete filter that doesn't block airflow but reduces harmful particles offers daily utility across regions from urban centers to areas with poor air quality. Scalability and simplicity. The product is low cost, easy to manufacture, and affordable for broad adoption. It doesn't require large machinery or complicated user behavior. That kind of low-friction product is appealing in the sharks' world. 2. Evidence of demand. Moore already had meaningful unit sales, 1.7 million units, and a lucrative international contract lined up, $8 million in orders, from a client in the UAE. That demonstrated both consumer demand and institutional interest. 3. Defensible IP and market positioning. The nasal screen product was patented, or in the patent process, in many jurisdictions. For products in health or filtering, IP adds credibility and acts as a barrier to competition. When Moore pitched, the sharks initially misjudged. Some thought it was a gimmick or that market size was limited. Mark Cuban reportedly responded, "Are you kidding me?" on first hearing the pitch. But once Moore laid out his numbers and evidence, especially the overseas contract and repeat sales, the mood shifted quickly. The sharks began seeing this not as a niche oddity, but as a potentially global respiratory health product. Several sharks made offers. The most eye-catching was from Robert Herjavec, who offered $4 million to buy the entire business plus a 10% lifetime royalty. That was one of the largest valuation offers ever seen on the show at that time. But Moore didn't accept that outright deal. Instead, he aimed higher. He countered, essentially saying, "That's low, I'm closer to $5 million plus 15% royalty." Eventually, Moore closed a negotiation with a try-shark deal, $750,000 for 30% equity plus perpetual royalties, with Kevin O'Leary, Mark Cuban, and Damon John as partners. But the nearly $4 million full buyout offer remains the moment people talk about most. What made this a standout pitch is the tension between accepting capital and preserving control. Moore's belief in his valuation and future potential set his story apart. The product wasn't flashy, it was practical and rooted in health. But the way Moore positioned it, showing real traction, global potential, and confident negotiation, turned it into one of Shark Tank's most memorable episodes. The moment Robert Herjavec dropped the $4 million buyout offer remains iconic in Shark Tank history. The room went silent, jaws dropped, and the audience leaned in. But that offer didn't mark the end of the drama. It marked the turning point. Herjavec's offer was not for a stake. It was for full acquisition. He offered to buy Joe Moore's entire business, First Defense nasal screens, plus a 10% lifetime royalty. It was bold, aggressive, and a signal that he believed the product had massive upside. But Moore responded coolly. He told Herjavec, "I believe the $4 million is low. I think we're very close. If you went to $5 million plus 15% royalty and offered me an employment contract, I'd consider it." That counteroffer stunned the Sharks. The tension in that moment was palpable. Herjavec, taken aback, said he couldn't go to $5 million. Mark Cuban tried to push, asking Moore what number would make him sell. Moore refused to drop far below his valuation, holding firm. He believed his future and his numbers warranted that kind of valuation. That refusal was what made the moment legendary. While Herjavec bowed out of matching Moore's counter, the deal opened the door for a different offer structure. The three Sharks, Cuban, O'Leary, and Damon John, regrouped and extended a joint offer. On screen, they offered $750,000 for 30% equity plus a perpetual royalty. Moore accepted that structure rather than the full acquisition. That final deal was dramatic in itself, three Sharks pooling to take a stake, but the build-up to it is what made it unforgettable. The $4 million offer was a peak moment. It tested Moore's conviction, valuation, and strategic mindset. Many expected him to jump at it. Instead, he negotiated, pushed back, and stayed true to what he believed the business was worth. The audience's reaction was electric. Cameras caught facial expressions: shock, admiration, disbelief. Social media exploded after the airing. That offer and Moore's response became legend. It was more than a drama. It was a moment that tells every entrepreneur: know your value, don't be rushed by pressure, and sometimes the biggest money isn't always the right move. Walking away from a $4 million offer on national TV may seem like a gamble, maybe even a mistake. But Joe Moore didn't just walk off. What happened after is a mix of validation, struggle, and legacy. Immediately following his Shark Tank episode, First Defense nasal screens saw a massive influx of interest. The so-called Shark Tank effect kicked in. Orders swamped the company's systems, press coverage surged globally, and distributors reached out from around the world. Moore's phone lines reportedly blew up. He had to scale operations quickly to meet demand. Crucially, his company managed to establish global distribution, entering over 40 countries. They also secured licensing and manufacturing partnerships, extending their reach beyond direct sales. Moore's patent coverage expanded to around 50 countries. Financially, Moore's decision to reject the full buyout didn't starve the company of capital. The try-shark deal he accepted gave him both funds and strategic partners. The royalties he negotiated helped maintain a recurring income stream. The combination of ownership, partnerships, and strong demand allowed the company to continue growing without ceding total control. However, the deal never fully materialized in exactly the form shown on television. Like many Shark Tank deals, it faced post-show due diligence, legal complexities, and adjustments. The on-air handshake was symbolic. The real execution required legal work and business fine-tuning. Some reports suggest that Moore, while benefiting from exposure and initial capital, had to navigate conflicts and internal challenges that come with rapid scaling. From a legacy standpoint, Moore has seldom expressed regret. He positioned himself as someone who believed more in long-term value than quick cash. The $4 million offer will always be the one that got away. But in many ways, Moore's story is celebrated as an example of self-belief in entrepreneurship. Many fans and business viewers treat Joe Moore as a hero. the entrepreneur who refused to sell his future short. Still, questions linger. Would his business have scaled faster with full acquisition? Would he have gotten resources or expertise that the sharks could bring instantly? Could parts of the business have been stronger under deeper investment? These are counterfactuals every ambitious founder asks themselves. Today, First Defense Nasal Screens continues to sell, to license, and to maintain relevance. Its presence in international markets and ongoing patents ensure it remains more than just a Shark Tank footnote. Joe Moore's choice remains both controversial and inspirational, and for many, it solidifies his place as a legend among Shark Tank alums.